So the Saturn Aura, I think I said that properly, that's back. The good thing is it's back for a different issue. The bad thing is it's back for a different issue. So unlike before, the car was stalling. Actually the last video I had addressed on this car was a P0335, which was a crank position sensor. I went in depth, diagnosed it, and it was spot on. Replaced the crank sensor. Car worked perfectly fine. The car, like I said, the car's from going to Maryland, and unfortunately when he got on the highway to head back home, within 18 minutes, I'll tell you how I know it was 18 minutes of driving, the car starts screwing up. And they wound up texting me they had a P0700 code, and so I'll go over that shortly. Car had to get towed back. P0700 is transmission related, and the previous code we had before, which was an immediate comeback once the vehicle got hot, was a crank position sensor. That is no longer existent, so that's successfully fixed. Let's look at the scan tool. I picked up some freeze frame data from before, some screenshots. I get logged in here. So what was going on? Here's the freeze frame data that I pulled out. Now the car wasn't displaying any codes. I wound up going to the PCM, and this was stored inside the PCM. So these are the screenshots. So I went into the PCM, found this freeze frame data. We had P0634. That was in relation to a transmission overheating temperature. That's what it was. So basically, the transmission detected it was more than 270-ish, 270 degrees somewhere. It was beyond its threshold, and it caused the P0700. And the P0700 was a command for the PCM to eliminate the malfunction light, and then the U0101 is the transmission communication failure. So once the transmission detects that it's overheating, it's going to shut down, and that's why we got those codes. Here's the freeze frame data here, and this pretty much tells me what the transmission was doing, and this is within that P0634 code. So the car was running for about 18 minutes. Tells me the evap information, warm-up count, so it was 2 successful warm-up counts. We got some other information. It was driven, because I've drove it approximately 20 miles, and the additional 26 he's driven, that's when the light came on. So he drove it approximately 26 miles on the highway. Now here's what I was looking at. I didn't have any transmission temperature information, but I did have engine coolant temperature. The thermostat on this car is supposed to be 180 degrees. At least that's what's getting delivered. The car, when I was driving it and trying to get it to replicate, monitoring the coolant temperature and the transmission temperature, the engine temperature did climb up to 217 degrees. Assuming he was catching the draft from somebody else and the radiator wasn't cooling properly, this is probably what we got. The car began to overheat, and I'm going to show you that shortly as to why I think that's happening. So the car began to overheat, then the radiator is a monolith with the engine and the transmission cooler, so it serves 2 purposes. If that's the case, if the car is overheating, transmission's overheating, we're going to get the transmission likely is going to get stressed because overheating under a load and a potential draft. Things are not going to cool properly, and the transmission probably is going to get hot and shut down. So that's what we got. That's my assumption why we got what we got, especially since he was on the highway. So let me show you what I got. Damn, did I take screenshots of? I know I did. Yep, here we go. Here we go. So this is when I was driving. This is what I got here. I went into the transmission control module and pulled up this PID data, isolated the transmission fluid temperature, the transmission control module, which is integrated inside the transmission, and the engine coolant temperature. The engine coolant went up to approximately 220. The transmission, at the most, while I was driving, I didn't get a screenshot, went up to about 205 or so also. So it shows that it was likely capable of running hotter than normal. So, before I even got to all this, I inspected the coolant. I left it alone as it is, and I want to show you what I found out. So we're at the expansion tank. The car is still a little hot, so I might have to get some of this air out. So there's some sediment here at the bottom. I'm not sure if it'll pick it up. The camera will. But it's right down there. And I'm gonna take these forceps, these needle nose pliers, or whatever you want to call them, pick it out and show you. But it looks granulated. You can hear it. Like somebody tried to sabotage the engine. Like a salt. But this is a fraction of what I can extract out of it. Look like it has a consistency of like granulated sugar, old sugar, or like a salt, but it really feels like sugar. And it's a lot of that stuff inside of here. I mean, I pulled out some pretty big chunks, and there was a chunk that I couldn't get out because there's just so much down in there. I mean, it's a lot. Look like icy. But this is what's in there. And again, as I mentioned in the other video, this is an auction vehicle, and I can't begin to tell you, when that guy brings vehicles from the auctions, it's always something interesting. So, the plan, I would like to replace the radiator, replace the thermostat, flush the system out. That's the appropriate way of doing this. But, you know, to keep things, this is not my normal customer, but to keep things at a minimal cost, I'm going to replace the thermostat, and we're going to pull the thermostat off and inspect that, which is down here, which is down there at that outlet there. And we're going to take this expansion tank off, or this coolant reservoir, and drain this and inspect what's in there. So let's pull the coolant out, get the coolant down, and we'll inspect what's in here, take this reservoir off, and then we'll inspect the thermostat housing. And hopefully, being that this is the hose here that goes from the reservoir to the thermostat, I'm hoping that being that the coolant travels from high pressure to low pressure, that everything got pretty much consolidated or congested here at the head of the thermostat, and we'll be in a better position as far as changing the thermostat. It will confirm that the car overheated, and this would justify just replacing those items and this guy being in a pretty good situation. So that's the plan. So let's get that taken care of. No, it's gotta. So we wound up getting a whole housing, and so we're going to replace this whole thing, the thermostat housing. It's going to be integrated inside of this outlet housing. So Now when I was messing around with it, I could feel chunks inside of here. Like as I squeeze it, you can hear it crunching. I don't know if you can hear that or not. So we're gonna pull this feed line coming straight from the reservoir off. Have to clean this off. Let me get a paper towel. I'm gonna make a mess anyway, so I'm gonna. Yep, look at that. You can see it. That's that crunching when I don't know what in the world that is. So pull this off. The hose is going back on there that I pulled off, and yeah, it is right. There's some in the tube right there. So I'm gonna leave that alone. We're gonna pull this rated hose off. So essentially what's gonna happen, I'm gonna pull these heater hoses off. This one going to the heater core, and this is another one going to the heater core. So both of these are gonna come off, and then I'll remove that lower rated hose. It'll be a lot easier. But in the meantime, the phone is overheating, so I have to get clips. Let's see. Let's pull this off. I don't think there's anything in there. No. I'm gonna pull the lower one off. Shit. After I got those two hoses removed for the heater core, pull these three fasteners out. These are 10mm. And I'll be able to take the outlet housing out, thermostat housing. Well, it's not an outlet housing. I don't know why I keep calling it. It's a thermostat housing. The outlet housing is going to be on the upper rated hose side. At least I could call it like a coolant bypass or something. A car I had to look at. Alright. I know I'm going to go to jail for using a 12-point on a 6-point socket. Oh, look at all that coolant. Oh, oh shit. Oh boy. It's gonna be a mess under there. So we're going to pull this apart. So some of that salt-like substance is in here, but it's not blocking off what I thought it would. Yeah, that's weird, man. What the hell is this? It was in the feed tube, so I still feel pretty good about replacing this. We're gonna put a new thermostat in it and check the coolant temperatures. So I got everything knocked out. It wasn't too bad putting the thermostat in there. I did strain the fluid that I got out the radiator, and it was very minimal. I do have some of those little granules in there, and the black stuff is just a little dirt that I probably picked up when I drained the coolant from the back of the engine. Let's look at the reservoir. This was in the tank here, and again, I don't know what this stuff is. Here's the back. There's still a little bit obstructed in there. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna let it circulate. I'm gonna take it on its test drive, look at the PID data, and I'll be back with some updates. All right, just got back from a test drive. Unfortunately, the check engine light did pop on. We're gonna figure out why. I got about a little over 20 miles on it, I wanna say. Let's go to diagnosis, do an auto scan. And while I was driving it, I kept having a repetitive code in the transmission. Pause it right there. Let's go to report. So we have a P0430. That's a catalyst below efficiency on bank 2. That's why the check engine light's on. So that'll let you know I completed the drive cycle. As far as the transmission, we have P0989, which is a fluid pressure sensor. It's a TFP, and P0877, which is another pressure sensor. So what those codes mean with the transmission control module is likely there's a fault with the valve body. When I was looking, I got some recorded data in here. Where can I access that? Here. So I noticed one thing in regards to the pressure sensor. I kept getting the indeterminate. It'll intermittently just pop up from OK to that, and that's what I recorded. So I'm not sure if there's it seemed like it's just likely going to be a valve body issue internally with this vehicle, simply because, I mean, if there's no reason why it should be, intermittently losing connection or anything. Let's go back to here. I didn't have any shifting discrepancies, but sometimes you'll feel like the clutches don't seem to want to grasp while you're in drive and applying the brake. Let's go back. I think. Let's go to control unit, transmission control module. So yeah, those are constant comebacks. Now, it's like one issue is fixed and another one's coming back. And the car, as far as the temperature go, let's go to live data. As far as the temperature go, the car hasn't done anything over, I want to say, 220 degrees. So it was still nearly like in the realm, but it stayed around 210 religiously. Let's go down here. So look at our engine coolant temperature. So it did move up, but it stayed lower longer than it did before. And this is likely going to simply be because of the radiator. I'm pretty sure that stuff got inside the fins and is causing it to be inefficient. The TCM temperature, those stay lower. Also, it reached a maximum of like 208 and it dropped. So it wouldn't surprise me if the valve body likely is going to have to be replaced in this vehicle also, with the catalytic converter, with whatever else issues it may have. So even after the long test drive, everything seemed to be working out pretty fine. Just my luck, you know, person gets the car, drives it, and start having problems. Just my luck, despite me putting 20 miles on the car again and not having any issues. So I'm more than likely what's going on with that check engine light is likely going to be, not the check engine light, but the transmission codes. Like I said, it's going to be a valve body that's going to have to be replaced likely. The fluid's fine. It can look better, but this car has 160 something thousand miles on it. Look like somebody already been through this vehicle and maybe probably potentially replaced the transmission already. I don't know. I'd have to find the VIN tag and see if it matches. We did have a leak that constantly would get on the transmission. That's fixed. Likely the expansion tank there was leaking. I'm going to call the customer and let them know what's going on with, you know, what things that are additionally what it may need, what it will need. I'm just going to say that because, I mean, likely if we got a P0430, that's already going to be over 1,000 right there to replace. It'll depend on the quality of part you get. The valve body, I can tell you, is going to be over 1,000 just to replace. I mean, I've done the Jeeps and stuff, man, and just the Jeep. These are Chrysler parts. This is, I know it's not a Chrysler, but the valve bodies are pretty expensive, assuming you can get a remanufactured one. So I don't know where you want to dig into it, but it's always something to get. It's interesting to get something from the auction because it's always it's always different, like as to why it's there. Somebody got rid of it for some particular reason, and you're left with the stresses of figuring out what the hell's going on. Depending on if the customer's on a budget or not, who knows? But as far as what needs to be done, the car didn't overheat. The temperature should be a lot better. Be a little bit more consistent than what it was before. I do feel as though it's going to need a radiator because things can be definitely a lot better, but I don't think it's going to really correct the potential likelihood that this valve body is defective. I'm pretty sure it's just sporadic when it happens, when the car just shut down. I haven't experienced it yet, but like I said, I'm pretty sure when they get it, and as soon as they leave 3 miles away from here, it's going to leave them stuck. Just my luck, despite me putting 20 miles on it again. So, but again, strange that stuff happened. Like whatever that debris is, I don't know. Maybe I can figure out if it's salt or sugar. I don't know. But we'll see what happens. If anything comes back, I'll let you know. But other than that, hit that link, subscribe to the channel, stay informed, have that reassurance on my work. See you next one.